concentrate. I didn't realize it was that long. I would have chopped it down so quick. I almost fell asleep listening to it. Actually, first of all, I wanted to talk a little bit about tonight, just about the effect that the world's starting to have an effect on Shag Harbour. Shag Harbour has already had an effect on the world. Shag Harbour is known far and wide now around the world, and I often ask when I do these conferences I do in the U.S., and normally they're in the U.S. Done a couple in Canada, 3 I think. I'll ask if anybody's ever heard of Shag Harbour before I did the talk. Most of them have heard about it. They've heard about the Shag Harbour Incident. And they know where Shag Harbour is, and then I ask them where Halifax is, and they've never heard of that place. So, they're on the map. But, Cindy's mentioned to me that she has had people, or her and her co-workers have had people coming into the museum. And I still call it a museum, or I have to officially call it an interpretive center now. Cindy. Interpretive center, and they're from various places such as Germany and England, I think Switzerland, and of course the United States, Upper Canada, and so on. And this is where I normally get emails from. I get from Japan. I've had a Chinese email. I've had Australian emails, and of course I correspond with people in Australia and New Zealand. Brazil, all over the world, about the UFO phenomenon, and normally they know about me because of the Shag Harbour incident. So when Laurie made that fateful phone call that night, he sort of put a lot of wheels in motion. Maybe if he hadn't made that call, none of this, we probably wouldn't be standing here now. Probably would have. It did get noticed by other people, but I don't know if it would have gotten the kind of response that it did. And this is an ongoing thing all the time. We're always getting a little bit more information, nothing usually earth-shaking, but when you start putting it together, there's sort of a mosaic that builds up about Shag Harbour from people we didn't know or were even around at the time. One of your locals here let known that she and another fellow were sitting in a car on the east side of the Irish Moss plant, and I walked over to see if that was possible, and yeah, you can get a car in there, and I guess it was a local spot around here, and they saw the thing land on the water, and then Laurie, and it was 4 girls, Laurie, not 3, pulled into the lot, because it's on the RCMP report, all their names are right in there. But anyway, they saw you come into the lot, and then they sort of kept a low profile, from what I understand, for a while until they could sort of just sneak into the rest of the crowd, because, I don't know. Listen, when I was in, I did a conference not a conference, the MUFON meetings in LA and in Orange County. They invite you to come down, and they both pay for your participation for you to come down. I mean, it's quite an airline ticket to get there for one thing, plus I got to pay for hotel bills, meals, all the rest of it. And they invited me down in April this year. And I spoke originally in Los Angeles, and then they put me on a train and I went over to Orange County, and I spoke over there the next night, which was a more productive meeting. There was about 85 people there. There again, I'd asked the question about if they knew where Shag Harbour was, and they all knew about Shag Harbour. And I did a little bit of a number on them at first by putting on I presented a PowerPoint about Shag Harbour, which I couldn't show here because you don't have a PowerPoint projector, but before I did that, since I was the only speaker that night, I had a little more latitude than I get at a UFO conference where you're slotted into an hour and you speak and then you get the heck out of there. And in this event, I put on a little slideshow that I had done about Don Legend and where I'm from type of thing. So I started out with a picture of Nova Scotia taken during White Lawn, and the whole thing was just white. And then I showed them a picture from home, and I had some pictures of some Eskimo igloos that were built back in the 30s, and it was a fairly big one. And there's another one with a picture of a woman bent over shoveling out the front of it, and I told as my wife shoveled in the driveway. And then after that, I had a picture of 2 dog sleds. One was a longer one, had more dogs on it than a shorter one. I said, the big one's my SUV, and the wife used the little one for traveling around. And I said, but nobody was laughing, like you people are. And I said, doesn't anybody find this funny and or unusual? And one guy put up his hand. This is the one in Orange County, and he said, well, I do. He says, I'm an engineer, and he said, and he was a chemist actually. He says, I've worked in Halifax for a while. It's nothing like that. And I said, well, this is exactly it. But I said, this is sort of a perception they had down here in the United States about Canada, you know, and particularly over the East Coast. But at least they know where Shag Harbour was. Anyway, I hesitated to do it. I didn't want to pull their leg too bad, but then I showed them a picture of Halifax Harbour and the province, you know, and the airports and all that sort of thing. So now they know down, at least in Orange County, 85 people in Orange County know that, you know, the place is not just basically just a big iceberg. I'm going to sort of keep my end of it short so that you can ask questions. Like, you know, you were asking questions of Laurie there about certain things, and, you know, some of them I have the answers to. I can't explain some of the things that happen, but I do have answers to the questions. Basically, you know the story. Laurie was coming in through from the east side of Shag Harbour and saw the object coming down out of the sky. He said from the north to the northeast, and that's more likely what it was. If those of you who bought the book, you'll see one picture in there of the North Pole, and what the actually 4 military people told us the course that this thing was coming down from Siberia, down over Ellesmere Island, over Labrador, and right straight down over New Brunswick, and then through into Nova Scotia. And that course would have brought it, at that angle, brought it in Nova Scotia. When you consider other UFO reports that were, I mean, that night there was a lot of UFO reports. I won't get into the ones, for instance, Chris Stiles himself, on the back of the book, ignore that. He wasn't here in Shag Harbour that night. He was 12 years old. He was in Halifax and saw a UFO over the harbour in Halifax that night. When they sent the proof out for that book, we were both away on vacation. So it sat in I know it sat in my mailbox. I don't know where Chris was, but he wasn't here either. And by the time we got around to critiquing the back of the book on the Shag Harbour dark object, it was too late. They'd already decided to make an executive decision and went with it. So anyway, other UFO reports around 10:30 to 11 o'clock was out over the Bay of Fundy towards Digby. North of Digby, there was a herring seiner fleet out there, and they experienced 2 UFOs that they saw in the sky that were zipping around. They were listening to marine radio in Wedgeport on Briar Island, and at Briar Island they were hearing another herring seiner just off the shore, relating how they were being dived on by an object, and they were frightened that they were going to get run into. Up over Weymouth, there was an RCMP officer by the name of Ian Andrews, Bert Green, who was Lands and Forest officer, a game warden, and 2 other game wardens. They were in a car overlooking a clearing up there, and they were sitting there, sitting on the clearing in order to maybe trap some deer jackers. And they were pretty much talking in the car. It was around 11 to 5 after 10 after 11 that evening. As the best that Ian Andrew could pin it down. It took me a while to find him, almost a year and a half, but I did get him. And he said all of a sudden the conversation just sort of died out, and then you know, everybody realized they're all looking up to the sky through the front windshields or watching this thing cross over the car. A brightly lit object just sort of drifting over the car and heading